Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to be talking about how to write a cause movie. Now, a lot of times when somebody thinks about a cause movie, they're thinking about, something that might be a political cause. It might be, a cause about quality of life or something like that. All of those are important and valuable. And we're thinking about it, we're actually expanding the definition of it beyond that, because there are a lot of movies that are not a lot, but there are some movies that really do have the potential of changing people's lives. And this is your chance to be able to do that. So let me give you a few here that are not what you would normally think of as cause movies, but they did something pretty amazing. So here was the first one. And if you were around back when this movie came out, you may remember at that point, the United States didn't have very many martial arts schools. It wasn't something that people knew about. They hadn't spent a lot of time with. It was like, I remember I was in Seattle at the time, and we can only find two different karate schools at that point. And then this movie came out. And when it came out, it changed things. It launched, not only did it open things up for the whole martial arts world, it brought in millions and millions of martial arts fans. By the time, within 2 years, there were martial arts schools all over the place. I came right out of this movie, and 1 week later, I started at a Kung Fu school that had just been opened up that week. And by the way, it was something that had a major impact on my life. It gave me much more confidence. It had me understand things I'd never understood. It took me on a journey that I didn't think was possible before that. And that all began with Bruce Lee and the movie Enter the Dragon, right? Now, here's another one. And again, these may be movies that you're not really familiar with. But at one point, I spent a little time in the poker world. I interviewed, I think, 8 different world champions. 5 out of the 8 said this movie is what caused them to embrace poker and to move forward on it. And that wasn't all. The year before this movie came out, when the World Series of Poker happened, they have a $10,000 event. And what was it? 300 people entered it. It was something like that. 3 years after this movie came out, they had 6,000. It completely changed that industry. Now, again, if you've seen the movie, you may not have had that experience, but I'm going to tell you, so many pros have said this movie had an impact and caused them to take a journey they never thought was possible before that. So here's another one. And there are people who would look at this and go, Terminator, was that a transformational story? And it wasn't for this guy, right? He was the bad guy in that case, the Terminator who had come back from the future, but it was a transformational story for the woman in the movie, right? We had Sarah Connor, who in the beginning was an inept waitress who couldn't find a date. Her date had canceled on her that night, and she didn't have much of a life. By the end of the movie, she was the only human being, the only one in the entire world who had ever killed a Terminator. She was the mother of the future and the future revolution. And her job was to train John Connor to lead that revolution. Her whole life changed in the midst of this movie. When I looked at it from that perspective, instead of from the guy's perspective, what I saw was an incredibly amazing transformational journey. And some people might say, well, it didn't have that impact on me. That's okay. when you write any kind of profound movie, there's a certain audience for it, and there are people who are not part of that audience. But let me just say one other thing. The other thing that happened because of Terminator, besides 5, different movies that came out, was a TV series called the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. But it was something that my daughters watched as they were growing up, and it had a significant impact on them. And then here's another one, The Matrix. And I've had hundreds of people tell me that The Matrix had an impact on their life. It's a story of a guy who goes from, being essentially the equivalent of a drug dealer, except he's a hacker who's, giving out hacking programs and that kind of thing. He goes from being somebody in this tiny room, low life, to by the end becoming the one and going through an incredible transformational journey. Now, here's the thing about this. All of these movies were watched 10 times the normal views. And, this is something to be considering. If you put out a movie and 10 times people watched it 10 times, what would happen for you is you would become one of the most pursued writers in this industry. There would be people in this industry who would go out of their way to work with you, because that means that every person who was part of that project is more successful. It means all the residuals that come from it are happening for years and years and decades after that. It means every person who was in the movie has a much wider audience, right? Just by writing something like this, you end up creating success, not only for the audience, but also for the people in the industry, who are working on the project, your career. So, and this is important. If you take the profound part out of any one of these movies, nobody watches it a second time. And that's really true. Take The Matrix, right? Let's just say we have almost all the same things that happen in it, except for this one thing. We don't have any character going from being a nobody all the way to being the one in a way that we actually believe that, right? We just have kind of a standard thing in there. Yes, they're fighting against the bad guys and all that kind of stuff. There are 100 movies that have that almost the same plot, but except they don't have the profound part. And because of that, I haven't watched any of them more than once. Because of that, there are probably most of them that most of us don't even know the titles of. So this is the part that made each one of these and the other ones something amazing that people talked about and caused them to view it over and over and over again. Now, I want to give you one more, because if you can see this, if you see what making the movie profound does, it actually has an impact on your career as a writer. It has an impact on what you can do. And at the end of this, I'll tell you the story about a lady who specifically took a script that the producer wasn't happy with, built in the profound journey instead of the standard screenwriting journey, and had huge amounts of success that came from it. And it was a lady who's just like you guys. So this is The Queen's Gambit. Maybe you've seen this. If you have, excellent. If you haven't, it is worth watching. It's on Netflix. But this story, I just want to say a couple of things. Within a week to 2 weeks after it came out, it was #1 in 63 countries. Now, this was a limited series. It was shown in 62 million households during that first month. Huge amount of success, especially at that time. What kind of impact did it have? Well, and this is the kind of stuff most people don't think of. And I wouldn't have thought of it. I wouldn't have thought, hey, you're going to put a movie on about chess and it's going to make this kind of difference. Chess set sales increased 250% at eBay. That's crazy. New players on chess.com, which is the most popular chess site out there, they went up 5-fold. That's insane, right? It's like if you take years and years and years that site has been out there, it went ×5 during the time that this show came out. You know, the novel itself, that was a novel from 25, 26 years ago. Nobody's seen it or heard it since then. It ended up being made into a New York Times bestseller because of this show. And the Financial News, this is Yahoo Financial News, recommended not only the show, but also Netflix stock because of the improvement that single show had made in their stock. Now, again, why I'm showing you this isn't because I'm trying to convince you that you should buy Netflix stock or do chess.com or any of these things. It's because the reason that this show had this kind of impact was not because of chess, it was because of the profound story that was built into it. So that kind of thing makes a tremendous difference, and it has an impact not only on audiences, but also on the world around it. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about first what makes a great cause movie or TV series. We'll look at key decisions that most writers miss. And I'm just going to give you a couple of them, but they're pretty important. And the reason most people they miss them is because they get an idea, they're excited about it, and they just start writing instead of standing back and going, okay, how could I tell this story in a profound way? We'll then look at the profound model itself, and I'll walk you through it so you can see exactly what needs to be there. And we'll talk about the upcoming class, the profound screenplay, that has not only changed the quality of people's writing, but has changed a lot of people's lives. So we'll jump into that. So first, what makes a great cause movie? It's not an infomercial or a documentary. And you want to be careful about this, because a lot of times when somebody's writing a cause movie, they will kind of go into this. And an infomercial basically means it just keeps saying the same thing over and over and over, because the person thinks that the more they say that, whatever that message is, the more they give whatever the profound statement is, they think it'll make a difference. You want to take them on a journey. A documentary basically means, you're putting in so many facts, so many pieces of information and that kind of thing, that it no longer feels like we are going on a journey. Instead, we are there to learn information, which is an okay thing if you're trying to do a documentary. So audience change doesn't come from the characters preaching at them or providing information to them or any of those kinds of things. It comes from a different place. It comes from you creating a profound journey that causes the audience to rethink and shift their perspective. Now, before we go further, I want you to just think back and find one of those times that you went to a movie and it shifted how you thought. Maybe it caused you to believe in yourself. Maybe it changed what you thought was possible for you. Maybe it shifted how you felt about a relationship or something. Maybe it gave you a pathway to follow that could make you more successful. But let me just give you about 15 seconds, and I want you to just find one. Because all the stuff we're going to talk about, it'll help you if you already have at least an experience of it that you're referencing. So do that right now. When have you seen a profound movie that changed your life? Okay. So if you've got that, again, there likely was a journey that was really powerful. There was something that went on that caused you to rethink things, and the entire journey shifted your perspective and empowered you. That's what we're looking for here. So, key decisions. First one, what's the change for the audience? Now, this isn't something that most people think of. Most people, and the reason why I know this is because when I later on ask them, what's the change after they've written the script, they're not sure. We're looking at this from a whole different perspective. And by the way, what we did was we put together a development team. We spent almost a year working on this because we were looking for, how do you create something that's truly profound? So this was the first question, and I'll show it to you in the model in just a minute here. But I want you to be thinking about this. Whoever's watching your story, they're having an internal experience, and if you think of the movies that have changed your life, that's the experience you want them to have. So we're starting with the question, what's the change? Here's the second thing. Then you're asking, who's the change agent and who gets changed? Now, I'll tell you, here's what you don't want to say on this. By the way, if you're ever talking to a producer, don't ever answer this question with everybody in the movie, because that's too much. It might work in a TV series. However, even the TV series that I see that are profound, I don't see everyone changing. So you want to get specific here. You want to look for who's going to get changed in this. And sometimes it's the protagonist, maybe like in the movie, in the Matrix, Neo was the protagonist. He's the one who got the main change. It was like the whole story was about his change and what happened for him. So sometimes it's the protagonist. Sometimes it's some other characters in there, like Dead Poets Society. Dead Poets Society, the ones who got changed were the boys. And it wasn't all the boys. It was just a few of them. It was some of them that embraced it and went through the journey and tried on the philosophy and all of that kind of thing. Now, then the other question, the other part of that is, who's the change agent? And there are some people who would say, oh, that's the protagonist. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's the protagonist who's getting changed, like in the Matrix. So your job is to look for, who is that? Is the change agent a teacher, right? Or like in Dead Poets Society, or is the change agent a coach? Is the change agent the best friend? Or is the change agent the antagonist who basically pushes the person through the change? You're going to make that decision, right? But these are incredibly important decisions, because this one, the person getting changed needs to represent the audience. And this one needs to be somebody who knows the journey in some way. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. Then the question is, what's the vehicle that you're going to present this change through? And the vehicle doesn't mean what car. It means, what is kind of the construct of the story, the part that is going to, force them through this. And yes, this is part of the transformational journey. But if you look at like Terminator, it's this situation is forcing her to make a change that comes specifically from the Terminator. If you look at the Dead Poets Society, it's, Mr. Keating teaching these boys and walking them through and taking them through a journey of how they can have more free thought and be more free spirits and those kinds of things. So, you gotta figure out, sometimes the vehicle is the war. Sometimes the vehicle is a relationship or something like that, right? But you're you want to find a vehicle that you go, okay, it makes sense to cause this change in the midst of that particular situation. Now, let's walk through the actual model. And this is just a metaphor for how to present it. Let me tell you where this came from. With our development team in the very beginning, we thought, you know, what most people think, which is like the big thing that's going to change people is the message of the story. So we thought originally it was all about the message. So we built this, it's like an envelope, to represent that. But then as we kept going and analyzing more and more profound projects, we came to the realization that it's not the message that makes the primary change. The message is something that when you get to the very end and it's delivered powerfully, is like a trigger. But there are a lot of other things that cause change when you put them together. So it starts this way. Instead of asking, what's the message, which originally is what we thought it was, instead, the question is, what's the change? And we already talked about this, so you know, but what I'd like you to notice is it's at the center of everything. Because as you make all of these decisions, you are starting with that thing of what's the change you're causing and building everything around it and building everything to fit that. Once you know what that is, once you know what the change is, then top left-hand corner here, you need to create an opening that connects deeply for your audience, right? They need to be connected to this changeable character that's going to go on this journey. They need to be connected to this story. They need to be connected on multiple levels. And the more ways you can get them to connect to it, the better. From there, we're going to jump all the way to the end over here and create the profound ending. Now, why we just went all the way through this to the ending is you need to have an opening that connects. You need to have an ending that basically triggers the change in their life. And when they leave the movie, they've had a profound experience. If we get to the ending and it's an average ending, that leaves people feeling like this doesn't matter. So instead, we need a profound ending that will basically have the change stick for them. And it's very important that you consider it that way. Let's go to number 4 up here. This is the transformational journey. Now, the easiest way most people think about a transformational journey is it starts in the beginning and it ends over here, right? My character starts as a drug addict and they end as, you know, a politician or a minister or whatever. And so it's like you have a start point and an ending point. We see a transformational journey now in a very different way. There's multiple things that are going to happen. Number 7 here is going to be part of the transformational journey. Number 8 here is going to be part of it. All of these, which I'll explain in a moment, are going to be part of that transformational journey. Because for a change to happen, first for the character, we need to believe that this is real. If we had watched The Matrix and he starts out in the beginning like this guy who has, like he starts, and then it's an easy journey, and he doesn't have to do anything, and he's spending all his time trying to create a relationship with Trinity, and that kind of thing, we would probably get to the end when he suddenly becomes the one and walk out and go, yeah, I don't even know what that movie was about. But because they built a transformational journey on multiple levels, it changed everything. And it's why people watch that movie over and over and over and over again. So we'll come back to this when we add in these parts. Then let's go over here. Number 5, bottom left-hand corner. Now we have a transformable character. And this is a little different. Like it's easy to think of a screenplay in a protagonist antagonist kind of way. We use that model. I totally believe in that model. But here, what we're trying to do is create a profound journey that's under the surface for the audience. So our transformable character might be the protagonist. It might be someone the protagonist is working with. It might be, another character, or it might be an entire group of characters like the boys in Dead Poets Society. And they have been designed specifically to go through this journey. Then on the right-hand side, we have the change agent. So we have transformable character over here, left-hand side. Notice that's where the beginning is. We have the change agent who is over here at the ending. They've already gone through this journey in one way or another. They are somebody who is bringing a different level of understanding. They have profound insights. They've already seen what works and what doesn't. They know what kind of steps this character needs to go through that will change their life. So they may not have been a success at it, but they know enough about this journey to be the one who is causing the change. And they might do it intentionally, like Morpheus, or they might do it unintentionally, or they may do it because they were assigned to do it. Who knows? But if you look if you look at Dead Poets Society, and I'll just talk about those two movies so it's clear. If you look at Dead Poets Society, most of the teachers up there are not trying to create a change for their students. They're just trying to get them through 7th grade or whatever grade it is, right? And it's like, they're not doing that, but Mr. Keating is, and he has already been to the ending of this. He went through the same school they went through, and then he went to another school where he was a professor and where he learned free thinking at that other school. So he has been through both the exact journey that they've been through right here, and has looked at it from a completely different perspective and brought back some profound insights. So then we have what we call the gradient of change. And this was a big part of shifting things for us. We have multiple different kinds of gradients. Maybe I'll tell you about that at the end. But really what this kind of comes down to, if I simplified it as much as I could, is a series of steps that the character has to go through in order to make a change. And they're sequenced. They're designed so that if somebody goes through all of those steps, very likely they will have a change over here. Those steps aren't just information. They're also obstacles. Those are some of the things up here. They're obstacles. They are moments of breakdown. They are moments where they are required to perform at a higher level than is even possible for them. And then there are moments of breakthrough. But it's like a series of steps that starts down here at the bottom. And by the end, they're up here at the profound ending, and they have mastered this model. So now, having said that, let's now go up here. Number 8, and these are these hashtags that are right here. What we found was that what usually keeps people from going through this change is beliefs and internal structures that they are living with every day. They have an old model that they lived out of that was working for them before, but if they're going to get to the point where they truly are at the, at a high level that are able to do the things that they came there for, if they're going to get to that, we've got to challenge some of the old ways. And think about how this happened with Neo. Neo suddenly woke up and he was in a pod. That challenged his old ways. And then he ends up, in a simulation where Morpheus actually kind of walks him through how the world changed and how his life is not what he thinks it is and all of that. All of these things were challenging the old ways. Then they built in profound moments, moments that actually caused him to believe in himself in a completely different way. This is incredibly important. You need this based on a gradient of change, and you're going to be consistently building in these kinds of things. Now, there's patterns that you can use to do this, but along the way, essentially, if you're challenging the old ways, creating profound moments for the new ways, building this in, you have a pretty good chance. Now, there's a few other things that we need to look at. Let's go over here. Number 9 is entertainment. We put this in because in the first group that we took through this process, some of them didn't build in any entertainment. And it was something that, you know, their only purpose was to essentially create a coaching program, kind of, as a movie. So the important thing to know is the reason people go to movies, the reason they watch TV, entertainment is the number one reason that they do it. They're going there to be entertained. They're going there to have a fun journey. They're going there to, you know, to get to see something that keeps them engaged, either, you know, emotionally or mentally, all that kind of thing, but also that takes them on an emotional roller coaster. And then finally over here, 10, insights. And this means that you have looked beneath the surface in your story and in your screenplay, and you have discovered things that most people don't know. I think one of the biggest problems when it comes to this that most people have is they do a certain amount of research and then they go, okay, it's all about the information. All that matters is the research. Insights are different. This means that, you know, you've discovered something that could cause a breakthrough for your audience, that could cause them to see life in a different way. You know, that could take them from here to here to here because you found something that they didn't know or understand. And you're presenting it in a way that could open them up and have them go, oh my God, now I see life in a different way. So put this whole model together, and what you've got is a story that can change people's lives. Now, you saw all of these, and let me just say on this, this is each one of these movies and the movies that you thought of that already changed your life. Each one of them had an impact because of the way they were written. Yes, they had great actors. I think this guy's a pretty good actor. They had great actors. Yes, they had great directing. Yes, they were visually stunning, all those kinds of things. But the way that they were written is the journey that changed people's lives. Now, let me tell you one more thing. And this is, we've had people who have had major changes in their own lives, but this is one story. We had a writer who was going through our profound screenplay class, and she was working with a producer at that moment. She had a paid writing assignment where her job was to write this horror script for the producer. The producer had a certain amount of information on it. She had written 3 drafts. He said, I like the way you put the story down, but it doesn't have depth. Now, if you think for a moment, there are actually a lot of horror movies that don't have depth. They scare you in a really bad way, but there's a lot of them that don't have that much depth, and I've analyzed 50 of them. But he wanted depth. And so she was in the middle of this class and she asked me, she goes, you know, he's asking for this. I'm not sure what to do. What if I used this model? And I said, wow, I hadn't thought of it as part of, you know, a horror story, but yeah, give it a shot. So she did. She wrote the 4th draft using our profound model and creating a profound story under the surface. She said the surface story survived, but what was under the surface was this profound story. She turned it into the producer 7, 8 days later, and here's what he said after reading it that day. He came back and said, "Oh my God, there's tremendous depth." He said, "You told an incredible transformational journey." And he was blown away by it. He said, "This was better than I hoped for." And then he said, "You're an amazing writer. You're going to be a success." Now, let's pause for a second. He had never said something like this to her before that. So he wasn't one of those guys that was naturally encouraging or anything like that. He was blown away. After that, he recommended her to a bunch of other producers. She got a whole series of paid writing assignments that came from the success that she had with this one. And since then, she's had 3 movies that have been produced. And she used this model on every single one of them. So this is part of what our purpose is to be able to help people go on a profound journey. For her and many other writers, we've been able to do that in this particular program. Ask yourself, what would happen if you had producers responding to you like this? I had at one point, I was doing an interview with a bunch of different producers, and this one producer sat down and he said, "I've worked with 4 of your writers and I love them." And, and I was like, wow, who have you worked with? All 4 of them had been through this program and some others, but they had also been through this program, and that was part of it. They were bringing the kind of depth that producers wanted. Now, by the way, we don't tell them, we don't say, "Oh, well, I wanted to write it as a profound story." We don't say that. We just write it as a profound story, and there they fall in love with it. So stay with me for a moment and just ask yourself, what if you had producers saying and thinking these kinds of things about you? What kind of a difference would that make? So that's what this program is about, the Profound Screenplay. It's not just about you learning a few things. It's about you becoming the kind of writer who can accomplish anything you want with a story. So here's what we do. What you just saw, what we just went through, essentially is the equivalent of day 1. It's an overview of the profound model. I don't expect you to have mastered it today while we went through this. We were just giving you enough so that you know what this is about and that you could use it. My hope is that you can already use what you learned, but I promise you, when you get inside this program, you're going to take that times 10. Day 2, then you're going to define the change of your project, right? Whatever project you're working on, like when she was working on that horror, she stood back and asked herself, what's the change that I want these characters to go through? And then you're going to look at how to make it an entertaining story. So you start and you build those 2 in from the very beginning. On day 3, now it's about the transformational journey that will change people's lives. You will build it in a specific way that fits this model. And because of that, it'll have so much more depth. Day 4, you are going to go to your change agent and your transformable character. And we have 4 different levels on each one of these. So it's like what I gave you today was the lightest level, but there are 4 different levels on each one of these. You can pick who you want to be the change agent and who you want to be the transformable character, and then just build in all 4 levels, and they're going to be incredible at this. Day 5, now it's about the gradient of change. How do you take the audience from living, Neo's life in the very beginning to the very end? What's the gradient of change that will get us to where we believe he is the one and that we could become the one also? Day 6 is then about building in your transformational structure. So this just goes beyond the regular structure. Day 7, now it's about how do you connect with the audience in the very beginning so that they follow you all the way through this story. And really what you want is you want the audience to be saying, that's me on the screen. Now, let me pause here because sometimes people think, oh, it's male versus female, those kinds of things. I have watched a lot of profound movies with women on the screen where I said, because of the way they connected that character to me, I said, that's me. And then I went through their journey. And I'm sure women have done the same thing with male characters at different times. If you connect them in the right way, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what race they are. It doesn't matter, what political ideas they have and stuff like that. If you connect them strong enough, we're going to go on that journey. We're going to follow you. Day 8, now it's about going to the profound ending and what needs to go in that. I talked just a little bit about that. I said a couple of sentences, but there's about 6 things that need to be there for it to be profound, which is missing from most screenplays. So what this will give you is you'll have an incredible opening and you'll have an ending that is truly profound, that when people walk out the door, they can't stop thinking about this movie. Then day 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all about one thing. How do we actually cause internal change for our audience? And this came from, in our development team, we had 2 psychotherapists and 1 psychiatrist, and then we had a whole bunch of produced writers. But the psychiatrist and the psychotherapist helped me design a system so that you could actually cause people to be able to question their own beliefs about whatever it is, about whether they could become the one, or whatever it is, whatever the journey's about. You could challenge those beliefs for the lead character and for the audience. You could then build in profound moments that cause people to experience this new way on a deep, deep level. This isn't normal storytelling. This goes way beyond that. And you will love what it does for you. Then day 13, you want to make sure all your scenes are entertaining because that's important. And day 14 will give you methods for creating dialogue that can guide our lives. Now, let me just give you one example. I'll use Dead Poets Society because we've been talking about it. Dead Poets Society, one of the lines was, carpe diem, seize the day, boys, seize the day, right? That line, I talked with the writer about it. I talked with Tom Schulman, and he said, yeah, I knew that line was going to have an impact. So I was very careful about how I presented it and when I presented it. So I listened very closely to what he did and stood back, and we went and analyzed a whole bunch of those kinds of lines. The ones that people talk about, the ones that people say to each other, the ones that have an impact. By the way, that line, seize the day, I saw, when I was working with corporations, I saw corporations that had that up on the wall after this movie came out. There's been entire training programs that have been created with that as the title of the training program. That's because it was profound and it was presented in a way that was profound. So this is all about how do you create those and how do you then present them? So this program, I'm going to tell you, any one of these lessons can elevate your writing. They really can, because again, we are looking at something with much more depth than the normal screenwriting model. All of them together, if you go through and just do all of this with an idea that is something that you think is profound and can make a change, all of them together will create truly a profound screenplay. It'll have producers looking at you as a writer in a different way. It will give you the chance to win contests. We've had a lot of contest winners that have come out of this program because, again, they're writing with so much more depth. Now, the class starts in, let's see, it starts on July 22nd. So that's about a month from now. That gives you a month to either brainstorm ideas or to look at whatever project you want to bring in. You can do it either way. And you can do this with a feature or a TV series. Just go through and brainstorm for the next month. Today, I'm going to give you a special price that we only give out when we're a month out. So for the first 10 people, the normal price is $297. For the first 10, you can get in at $157. That will save you $140 on this class. It's a 30-day long class. You'll be learning something new every single day that you will use in every screenplay you write from now on. Even if you only use half of this model in every screenplay you write from now on, they will be better scripts than you've ever seen. So you have, this is a chance to be able to create the thing that most writers are missing, which is tremendous depth. Again, special price, one, that'll be for the first 10 people. After that, for the next 20 after that, it bumps up to 177, and then it continues to bump up until we get to the actual day of the class. It'll be 297 on that day. Here's all you got to do to join us. Just write this link down, bit.ly, bit.ly/profound class. No spaces, no dashes, none of that. Just write that down, put it in a browser where you normally put a web address, and click return. It's just that easy. And again, for those of you, the first 10 that join us, you're going to get in at this special price. If you end up in the second group, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. I promise you. Once you get into this program, you will be so glad that you're there. You will have insights and breakthroughs every day that provide more depth in your writing, which is one of the most important things that producers say are missing with average screenwriters. So if you haven't yet started making deals with producers, if you haven't yet won contest or any of those kinds of things, chances are depth is one of the reasons why. This gives you depth in like 8 to 10 different ways, all of which increase your chance of success. So come join us on this program. I promise you, you will love what you learn, and you will love what it does for your writing. You at the end of this, you will see yourself as a different writer. You will be able to, look at other people's screenplays and know why they're not working. This will give you so much more understanding. That's what its purpose is. So I hope you enjoyed what we did today. My objective always is to do what I can to help you guys move forward and have more success. Again, come join us for this class. You will absolutely love it. Just write that link down, put it in your browser where you normally put a web address, and click return, and you're in. So with that, thank you guys for being with me today. This is Hal Crosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the absolute best in your writing career. Bye-bye, everyone.